Hey guys, here we are with Detroit Comics with our pal Brian Kelly. Hello.
We did it.
Okay, Brian, we just read Justice by Alex Ross and Company. Okay, we had a very convoluted discussion. There was a lot of good things to say about the art, not a lot of good things to say about the writing. What did you think about the art, first of all?
Art, stellar, but there were problems with that.
What problems?
There were discussions about the fact that maybe Alex Ross is a bit passé. He was great for his time, late 90s, 2000s, early 2000s, but now maybe he's been surpassed by other masters.
What did everyone feel about Alex Ross's art?
It was really impressive and pretty and well put together, but sort of didn't match the story.
I believe Patrick said he used to like Alex Ross, but then he grew out of him.
I agree. Well, you'd never know because, you know, people that go to his gallery, probably in New York, are packed around the block. But if you look at it, maybe he's a touchstone for the non-comic reader.
You know, at first, I didn't really like it. I didn't really think that the more realistic style really fit with the comic book narrative. But as I kept reading it, it started to grow on me, and it kind of, you know, took on this, like, mythic quality. There are some issues, like, some of the frames can feel cluttered and overly busy, but for the most part, I think it kind of gave the comic this sense of gravitas that maybe the narrative didn't really warrant, but nonetheless, it did give it that.
If Alex Ross art appeals to you initially without really seeing any other comic art, you might go, oh, that comic art is the best. But not knowing the huge gamut of the ocean of artists that are out there, you would never really have anything to compare it to.
That's kind of how I feel about that comic book called Walking Dead. But anyway, great show, great TV show. Anyway, okay.
Did you know kittens have the sharpest claws?
Actually, I was the opposite. I really liked it at first, and then going further into the book, I liked it even less. Just because I feel like it took away from the story. Like, it took away, like, the action aspects of some of, like, the bigger fight scenes, and any fight scenes, really. Just, like, it took away from the story a little bit towards the end, I felt.
What did you think about the story now? What were some of your favorite moments in the story?
The comparisons to Kingdom Come were several. Captain Marvel seemed to be the best thing about the book. And me being from the 70s, I have to say all the Superfriend references were fantastic. But other than that, the plot was confounding. It had several different things going on, several different plot lines coming in. Oh, let's go with the costume change. Let's go with the armor change. Oh, it looks awesome. Splash page. Bam.
Let's sell some toys.
Yeah. And we're done with it. Like 10 pages after it.
Allie, what were some of your least favorite things about the plot in this comic?
It just felt very disjointed. It was trying to take on a little too much. There's a couple parts where I turned the page and thought I must have missed a page because what was happening was so different from what was happening on the next page. So I feel like it tried to take on a little too much, and it took itself a little too seriously, and just came off kind of silly.
But there were a couple specific scenes that you mentioned. Do you want to share some of those with us? Some of the sillier plot points?
Throwing Superman into the sun. That was my personal favorite. He was just, you know, you have to throw me into the sun. It'll be fine. I'm fine. Cutting into Aquaman's brain, and then he grew back the part of his brain because he's an amphibian. They said like a lizard would grow back its tail, but lizards are not amphibians. They're reptiles.
You heard it here first, okay? Was there a third point? Something with Green Lantern, or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, just Green Lantern's sort of magical undoing ring. He could kind of just do ridiculous things. He could erase his identity from people's minds with his power ring, because that's how things work. That's how power rings work. So it was fun. It was sort of interesting and like, oh, this is happening now. This is where we're going with this kind of way. But it wasn't very good.
Okay, Oliver, was the story good?
No. My major problem with the story was that it seemed to have an identity crisis. They start to set it up like it's this deconstruction of the superhero genre. But then about halfway through, they chicken out and they just play the superhero story straight. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the comic didn't really know what it wanted to be, or maybe it did, but it just didn't have the courage to commit to that.
How many times have you read this?
Once.
Are you going to read it again?
No. It was a chore actually. But I was like, God, okay, all right, I get it. Okay, Luther's back and he's okay, but he double crossed Brainiac, and then oh my God, I don't. Please, there's 50 pages left. I don't even want to read it.
It was not as well put together as other comics that I've read. The story was definitely harder to follow. It was kind of choppy and broken in a lot of places, and I was just not very impressed with the overall book.
Someone comes in, they're like, look, I like superheroes. I like the Super Friends-ish vibe. Give me something instead of Justice. What should I read instead?
I would start him off on Kingdom Come before I would ever start him on Justice.
Final words, guys. Do you recommend this comic, and will you read it again?
I recommend this comic if you like things in it's so, bad it's good kind of way. If you're a fan of The Room or Trolls 2 or things like that, you'd probably like this comic.
Well, that's harsh. Okay.
Ultimately, would I recommend this comic? Probably not. It has some good elements. I think the villains in the comic were really well developed, but just in all, it's just weighed down too much by just a series of flaws, and it just makes it feel generic in totality.
Gotcha. Okay, do you recommend this, and are you going to read it again?
I'll probably read it again at some point, but I don't think I would recommend this to someone that hasn't read a lot of DC already, because it's a lot. There are a lot of characters just thrown in, and I didn't know who everyone was. I had to keep going back and forth to Google, like, okay, who's that? What's that one?
The story is awful. I mean, it should be, for nostalgia-wise, for Super Friends fans of the 70s, pick it up. I guarantee it. And you should pick it up at your local comic book store, which is Detroit Comics. And they would love to help you out, find other things to your liking.
Okay, that's it. We're done. We're good.
Shit.
And overly busy.
Ryan, we can't use it if it's all like.